Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from group 4 and we're gonna explain about the speech community. And I'm Andika Fitri Perdana will explain first about the definition of speech community. Before we get into the definition, I will introduce for you all about um, language and sociolinguistic. Uh, Language is about an individual possession and social possession. We would expect, therefore, that certain individuals would behave linguistically and like the others individual. They might be said to speak and with the same language or the same dialect or the same variety. So, um, and for the sociolinguistic is the study of language used within a group or speakers. Uh, and for the groups, you can the definition of group is uh, that's a difficult concept to define, but one we must try to grasp is for our purpose is the speech community. The group must have at least two members, but there is really no upper limit to group membership. People can group together for one or more reason: social, religion, political, cultural, familial, vocational, and the others. And the group may be temporarily quite permanent, and the purpose of its member it can be changed. And about the community is a group of a people with a shared set of activities, practice, beliefs, and social culture. So that we can conclude is 3 points. The first is language is both an individual possession and social possession, and the second is speech community is hard to define because it is not a true definition. And the third is the kind of group that sociolinguistic attempt to study is called speech community. Okay, now I will give you a definition of speech community in according to expert. The first is Lyons. Lyons says the speech community is our people who use a gift language or dialect. And then LeBouf said participation in a set of shared norms. These norms may be observed in other types of evaluation behavior, and by the uniformity of abstract patterns of variation and which are invariant in respect to particular level of usage. And Gamper says a social group which may be either monolingual or multilingual, held together by a frequency of social interaction. Remember, frequency of social interaction and set off from the surrounding areas by weakness in the lines of communication. The kind of group that sociolinguistics have generally attempt to study is called speech community. Like I said before, for purely theoretical purpose, some linguistics have hypothesized the existence of ideal speech community. And but in the we can conclude from the all expert that said is definition about a speech community is a group of people who share similar ideas and use norm of language. In language, there is a refer to a set of communicative forms and norms for their use that are restricted to the particular group, community, or activities. Okay, that's all from me about the definition of speech community. The next material will be continued by my partner. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Anisya Pahriani. Here I will explain a part of the speech community. It is intersecting communities. Talk about the citing communities. What is intersecting communities? Well, intersecting communities are the communities which have things in common. Here, the individuals find it is the advantageous to shift their identity freely. The fact that people do use expressions such as New York speech, London speech, and then South African speech, it is indicate that each person have their own typical speech community. It is based on their origin country. We can say that each country have a dialect and accent. It is driven simply by the intersecting community that we can see, that we know in Indonesian. It is a language from from communities such as like Balinas, Bataknas, Sundanas, and Bancharis. By looking the language, we can know that the word, accent, intonation, and also the dialect, it is all different. Rosen, in his book, he claimed that a city cannot be thought of as a linguistic visual map because language and dialect have no simple geographical distribution, because the interaction between them is blurred whenever boundaries may be drawn. Dialect and language are begin to influence each other. For example, London is a community in some cases, but not in others. Neither a single speech community, even though it has 300 language or more. It is too big and fragmented. It is too difficult to relate all speech communities directly to language or language spoken. We can easily see how difficult it is the concept of speech community directly to language or language spoken, and even to group a norm if we refer back to the linguistic situation. In that situation, which require one to take as a marriage partner someone who speaks an entirely different language, and furthermore require the female to join the male household. Multilingualism is endemic and normal. So the concept of speech community is less useful than what is expected that we expect, and we should be instead referring to group as any set of individualism united from a common end. A person can belong to many different groups at any given time, depending on the particular end in view. For example, Laura is living in Sweden. She married to a Swedish man, and then she and her husband speak mostly in English and Swedish, switching and mix both of them from time to time. Laura had to learn Swedish with an intense course in Sweden because she is an immigrant from Costa Rica. She has a different accent. She doesn't speak Swedish that well. She used Swedish in the hospital as well as English, switching from time to time and from one group to other group. Each member of community has a repertoire of social identity that are each one in a given content is associated with a number of nonverbal and verbal forms of expression. There is not a clear way how to define how individuals can classify themselves, and speakers are creating and recreating social identity. So it is impossible to predict group or community he or she will consider itself to belong in a particular moment. This group will change according to the situation. I think that is all from me. The next will be explained by my friend Resha and Nasir.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Resha Dara Oktaviani. We are discussing about speech community, and here I explain about networks. According to Boyce and Horvath, they say the notion of network is strongly conditioned by the effects of scale and place. And according Milroy and Gordon, also point out that the concept of network and community of practice are closely related, and the differences between them are chiefly method and focus. Um, and network analysis typically deals with structural and content properties of ties that constitute egocentric personal networks, but cannot address the issues of how and where linguistic variants are employed to construct local social meanings. Rather, it is concerned with how informal social groups support local norms or facilitate linguistic change. And in social science, network can be defined as a group of interdependent factors and the relationship between them by asking what networks the individual participate in. We can know how an individual relates to each other in society. Let us take a look in four features. Feature 1, we can see that every individual are equally linked. For example, a link into two other individuals B and A building into two individuals A and C and so on. Figure 2, we can see that they are strongly linked with A as a predominant. That means I have a connection with all individual, meanwhile the other individual don't. So for the example, if communicates with B to A, C communicates with B to A, and so on. Figure 3, we can see that they are weakly linked with the link to A prevailing connections. So I have a connections to all the individual, meanwhile the other individual only have one connection to A. So if E communicate with B, it must through A. The communicates with C through A, and C communicate with B also through A, and so on. Figure 4, the link A to E are achieved through C. So if I want to communicate with E, it must be to C. And if B want to communicate A, also A and C, so on. And then in network, there are intensities of various relationship, frequency, or interaction. The first one is dense network. This network means when people you know and interact also know and interact with one another. For example, is a team or employee. They all know each other, but A, B, C, D, E. A know B, C, D, E. B knows interact with A, C, D, E. C knows interact with A, B, D, E, and so on. And the next one is multiplex network. This means tied together in network more than one way. For the example, A and B. A and B is a member of communities where people work in family business. In other way, A and B is also siblings. So A and B has relation more than one way. And loose network means not all members know each other within social network. Okay. Thank you for your attention. That's all. I'm sorry if I have mistake for this explain. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Nasir and I am from the fourth group. So our group is talking about speech community and I'm going to tell you about repertoire. Before I start to explain what repertoire is, let's imagine that you and your friends are going to Javaland to enter your new college, and of course you and your friends and will meet Javaland people. And if you talk to the Javaland, you will talk with maybe with the mother tongue of the countries. Like Indonesia has bahasa, so you will talk with bahasa, and maybe sometimes you will talk with Java language. And if you talk to your friend, of course I'm sure that you will talk by Borneo language, for example Banjar language. So that it's an example of repertoire. Repertoire is skill that possessed by someone to talk talk because you are really into the social linguistic. Repertoire is used really full because if you talk to the someone that not really like same with you, so you're going to talk with the general language, for example English. And maybe if you meet someone um, from another site, for example Papua, and of course you will talk with bahasa. And repertoire is also about your age and maybe your social network. For example, when you are in college, you will talk formal with your lecturer, but when you talk to your um, brother or your parents, you will not talk formally. And in another example, you will have uh, another factors of using or utilizing repertoire. For example, you will in mosque, you will not talk um, you will not talk formal, but you have to keep your mouth from bad speech. Okay, that's all from me. If you found many mistakes, please forgive me. The last I say, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.